Let's go live to the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, co-CEO Peter Wertheim. Peter, thanks for your time. It's great to see you. I want to start with your general response, your reaction to that protest, the size of the protest, particularly in Sydney yesterday.
Well, I would never criticise anybody for showing compassion and concern for people who are suffering in conflicts in other parts of the world. And I'm sure that the majority of the people who protested were in that category. There were, of course, some signs and placards that depicted images and messages which were incompatible with that general concern. There were Hamas flags being flown and jihadi flags. There were also some other messages there, including, I think, one person holding a placard of the dictator of Iran. So there were a variety of motivations for people to participate. But let's assume the majority of them were there for reasons of compassion. It would have been nice to have seen a placard or two calling for the release of the hostages. I didn't see any placards to that effect. It did seem to be a bit selective in that regard. But look, I would never criticise people who want to protest because they are concerned about what they see on their TVs or on social media. It is a little superficial. I mean, those images are terrible, as are the images of the hostages. And there was one that was released, I think, yesterday that showed one particular Israeli hostage looking in a terribly emaciated condition. And nobody was calling for the release of him or the other hostages who are still being held in Gaza. Overall, it's just a sad sort of state of affairs. People react, I think, in a shallow and superficial way to the images they see. I don't blame them for the emotions they feel, but it isn't based on any really deep knowledge or understanding of the history of the conflict or what's really at stake at the moment.
What do you feel as someone who does know the region well and knows the issues well? Do you think that Israel is losing the information war here?
Well, I think the decision by the Israeli government in March to stop the flow of aid was wrong in every respect. And it's not just from the benefit of hindsight. I think it could have been seen and predicted as being incredibly counterproductive, even at the time. I know that the motivation was to stop Hamas from stealing the aid, and there's incontrovertible evidence that they had been. But the effect of it has been to exacerbate conditions of starvation in at least parts of Gaza and at least parts of the population, the ordinary civilian population. And that has rebounded on Israel in a catastrophic way. And it was probably the single biggest miscalculation, I think, that Israel has made since the intelligence failures that preceded the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attacks that precipitated this war.
Yeah. And this is an element of the debate which is often overlooked. And it's, I know, having seen and read comments made by former Likud Prime Ministers, Ehud Olmert. This is not someone who comes from the left of politics, but he's been scathing of Netanyahu and his government, and particularly the events that you're talking about with the aid distribution. And there's been a very forceful debate about this in Israel itself and a lot of criticism from within Israel about that. And sometimes I think there's a lack of awareness of that discussion, which is ongoing, and that debate, which is a fierce one right now, Peter, within that country itself.
Yes, all political debates in Israel tend to be fierce. It's a very robust democracy and freedom of expression is alive and well. It's the only country in the region where you can say that with any confidence. And even allowing for the fact that Ehud Olmert and Bibi Netanyahu are political rivals, and you make allowances for that, I think Ehud Olmert's observations concerning the lack of morality and wisdom of the decision in March has a lot of substance to it. And I'm not the only Zionist who says that. I'm sure there are plenty of others. And so as a result, countries and governments and people who were, I think, overwhelmingly sympathetic to Israel following the October the 7th attacks in 2023 and seeing the perfidy of Hamas in the way it conducts itself, the way it deprives its own civilians, it uses its tunnels within civilian areas to fight its wars. Israel did have a lot of sympathy going for it. And it also, I think, achieved a lot of sympathy in facing down Hezbollah and Iran, because really, if you think about it, it did the rest of the world, and particularly the Western world, a great favour at tremendous sacrifice. But a lot of that, I think, has now been dissipated through the decision to cut off the flow of aid and the images that people react to. Even though it is superficial, it is a shallow way of deciding, which side you're on. A lot of people do it because it plays on the heartstrings. I mean, it is heartrending to see those scenes, and I don't blame anyone for reacting the way they did to them. I would like to see similar reactions to the scenes about the starving hostage as well.
Absolutely. Well, I know exactly. The person you're talking about, the young Israeli hostage,
is his name.
I think there's a few, and we believe I think there's about 20 still alive, and heaven help. Each and every one of them. Obviously, there's huge sympathy for them.
Yeah, Kieran, I think there is huge sympathy for them, but it wasn't really on display yesterday on the Harbour Bridge. We believe, maybe 20 or more are still alive. It would be nice to, if some of that was acknowledged, had been acknowledged at the demonstration. But look, Australians are warm-hearted, compassionate people. I was on the bridge 25 years ago, actually, for the reconciliation walk, which attracted 350,000 people. It was an enormous demonstration, something closer to home that we better understood. Yesterday's demonstration was a lot smaller than that, although the numbers were significant. It's something that people don't understand perhaps as well, because they're not really well versed in the history of the conflict and what's at stake at the moment, which is really, when Israel says that it's fighting for its life and for the physical survival of its Jewish population, they're telling the truth. And a lot of people lose sight of that.
Yeah, indeed. And I just want to finish, if I can, Peter, on something which obviously is top of mind for you, and understandably, it's something that worries a lot of friends of Jewish Australians, and obviously it's within your community as well. It's a massive concern, and that's where people conflate that. And I'm not saying something that's new. We know it's been the case for months now with the rise in anti-Semitism. But I worry that, and I'm sure I'm one of many people, many of our viewers who are concerned about this, and that's where the crisis in the Middle East and the behaviour of elements of government there, and you've been critical of Netanyahu yourself just in our chat today, but how people conflate that into a criticism of Jewish people, Jewish Australians, which I find just reprehensible.
And the irony of it is, Kieran, that when we point out how these polemical attacks against Israel and as a state, not just its government, but Israel as a state, are leading to physical violence and other acts of anti-Semitism against the Jewish community in Australia, when we point to that, the irony is that we are accused of conflating anti-Israel sentiment with anti-Semitism. It's the perpetrators who are doing that, the perpetrators of anti-Semitism. We're just calling it out. And I'd like to see that better understood as well, because too often, you know, what we see at some of these demonstrations, which either directly or indirectly call for immoral behaviour towards Jewish Australians, or even to other Australians who happen to be associated with us, is just is excused on the basis of freedom of expression. It's not freedom of expression. You know, outpourings of hate and name calling are not exercises of freedom of expression.
Yeah, that's true. But we really appreciate your expression, your comments, your insights, your reaction to all of that. Peter Wertheim, thank you for that today. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.